Hey you guys, I hope you guys are doing well. Welcome back to the channel. I did say that I was going to come back with another video, and I have to say this is going to be a little bit of a long one. I feel like I've been sitting on this and these thoughts for a minute, so it is going to be a little longer than the other ones. But if you are not new to this channel, hey Noti Gang, I know you guys are here. Thank you guys so much. On my previous video with Drew Sidora and Kenya Moore, you guys, oh my gosh, when I look, honestly, and I'm not being over dramatic like Drew, but when I think about some of the comments under that video and you guys like, oh, I'm so happy to have you back. Oh, we missed you. It really does bring tears to my eyes because I know that y'all F with me. Y'all fuck with me. And I appreciate that. I really, really do. And I'm just so glad to be back. Like I said, it's just been so much going on, but I feel like my life has settled. And as I also stated, it's okay to just take a break from whatever it is that you can take a break from. It really does your mental health good to just step away from things when you can step away from it. And know that if people rock with you the long way, they'll be there. And you guys proved that to me yesterday, so I appreciate that. All right, don't forget to like this video. It definitely helps get the visibility out there when you guys like the video. Now, I've been sitting on these thoughts about DMX, of course, since we heard that he had suffered an overdose. And even though I wasn't compelled to get on here and run my mouth, because I do feel like, you know, now that I've seen all of this play out, I feel like I can just condense it and put it into one video instead of like having several videos, this, and this. And like I said, I just wasn't really up to even getting on here and recording anyway because of, you know, what was happening in my house. I was remodeling. If I got contractors in the bathroom, you hear all that buzzing and sawing and stuff like that. Who wants to record, right? So I am glad that I waited, and I'm glad that I was just like able to just chill for a good month or so and just kind of collect my thoughts about this because I do have a lot of them. Now, when I heard the news about DMX, it did touch me very personally because I have such a love for him, such a love for DMX. I have watched him pretty much since he's been out. I remember in 1998, I was a senior in college and I had my little car. You know, I was outside, okay? I was one of them people that, you know how you like come down the block and you like playing your music, and then when you about to leave, you know, people outside, you got to make sure you turn your music. That was me. Okay. That was me with Rough Riders. So it reminded me of that time in my life, which was such a beautiful time. I love my life now, but I just remember being young, single, no kids. It was just a nice time. It was just something it was memorable, right? Had the 6 CD changer, all that stuff. I thought I was doing, I didn't think I was doing it. I was doing it. Okay. I was doing it. But nonetheless, when I heard that DMX had suffered an OD, what was amazing to see is all of the people who, and it was bizarre to me, all of the people who almost seemed too eager, in my opinion, to announce his death. It was the weirdest thing to me. And I'm sure that you guys saw that as well. All these people prematurely saying that he had died, and Claudia Jordan had came out and said, rest in peace. I mean, it was just a lot of stuff. Now, when the news broke that he had suffered an OD and he had been without oxygen for 30 minutes, the writing was on the wall. I mean, for those of us who kind of put 2 and 2 together, you kind of knew that if he had went without oxygen for that long, chances are he was brain dead. And they kept saying that he was showing very little brain activity. You know, there were like conflicting reports, but the writing was on the wall. And even if that was so, I still felt like until the family says so, everybody else needs to shut the hell up and stop reporting this and this and this. And I was annoyed by that. I was annoyed that there were so many people who were, like I said, itching to say he was gone. He was gone. Not that I felt like it was going to change and he would improve. It was just a little odd. And it just showed such a different side to like this whole, like, I don't understand why people want to be first to say anything. Like, people just be wanting to be first. Just like, I want to be first to report that this happened. It's like, it's okay to wait. He has a family. He has, as we can see, 15 children. And I'm sure that they were trying to make sure that all those kids got in there to see their father, to say their goodbyes and stuff like that before that family made a decision. And so like, I was just kind of like disgusted by people being so eager to report that. When again, as we can see, and if you've watched any of this and you've seen all his children, most of those children are old enough to be on social media. So I think people just have to be more aware and just be more like empathetic to certain situations and not be so eager to want to be first to report stuff, because that's not something that I would have been eager to report, especially knowing that there are so many people that would be affected by that news, right? 15 children. He had 15 kids and everybody out here reporting that he had died. Now, again, there are conflicting reports about how that happened. Most recently, Irv Gotti got his ass on WGCI, that's the local station here, Chicago area, and said that he OD'd off of some crack that was laced with fentanyl. And again, I don't understand why Irv Gotti felt the need to go over there and report that when we still ain't heard from the family. I just, again, why did he feel that it was his duty to go out there and report that? I just don't get that. I don't. But it was also interesting to note that I didn't see his ass at the funeral either, because I'm sure they felt some type of way. And it's a shame because Irv had been with X for years. Like from the beginning of DMX's career, Irv Gotti was always around. So it is a shame that Irv Gotti felt the need to go out there and report that. It just, like I said, I don't understand. I don't get any of that. Now, another thing that I saw during all this time is that people were saying like, where was everybody when he needed help? And this, where, now everybody want to show out his love and where were you? Blah, 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 blah. And to be honest with you, I just feel like, in my opinion, I don't necessarily feel like this applies to DMX, because I do feel like DMX was one of those people that got his flowers. Now, I may have said maybe it felt a different way if that versus had never happened, but I'm so glad he got to do that versus with Snoop Dogg, because I do feel like DMX got his roses. He got his flowers that day, and he had been getting his flowers, right? If you've ever watched him with his Bible study and just watch him pray, I feel like people never really forgot about DMX. I know I never did. I didn't. So, I know that does apply to certain people when it's like, well, y'all want to give people flowers when they're gone, but what was it? I just don't feel like that about DMX. I feel like DMX definitely got his roses when he was alive. And so the day of the funeral arrives, the first funeral, or we should say public memorial, right? And I remember watching, and I saw this clip of that big ass truck carrying his casket, and all of these Rough Riders, all these like bikes behind, and that was a beautiful moment to me. I don't know about you, but it touched me. It touched my heart to see so many people out there for X. And again, even when he was in the hospital and all those bikers were out there, all those folks was out there showing them love. Like I said, I feel like he has always gotten his roses. That's how I feel. It is hard to help a person that has a sickness like addiction. It is hard to help them. So I do understand how people are feeling when they say, well, wasn't nobody around. Where was everybody when he did that? It is hard to help people who have addictions. It just is. But that doesn't mean that he wasn't loved. It just doesn't mean that. So let me get back. The day of the memorial at the Barclays Center. Now, he had the public memorial and he had the funeral, and I'm going to talk about both. I watched both. I watched them all the way through. And I don't want to seem disrespectful. I know that I had heard reports that Swiss Beats wanted Kanye West to, I guess, organize this or, have his Sunday service choir come and stuff like that. And I don't know who was necessarily responsible for the aesthetic of this public memorial. But I got to be honest with y'all and say it was very dark and eerie to me. And I don't like to use words like demonic. I don't, because that's not. But as you can see, it was just something about this public memorial that was very dark to me. It just was. It was very eerie. It was, if I was a kid in the audience, it would scare me. I'm just keeping it 100. If I was a small child watching this, you have this casket in the middle of this, and you have all these people kind of with a red hue around them, choir singing, kind of surrounding the casket. That was very eerie. That was very eerie. And for the longest time, I didn't even realize Kanye West was on stage. He was mad. It was just weird to me. It was very dark. It was very dark. It was just something about this particular service that was just unsettling to me. It was unsettling in the worst kind of way. And then I heard that, there were dressing rooms in the back for Nas and Jay-Z. And I'm just thinking to myself, is this a funeral or a concert? And that's kind of why I felt like it was more, it was definitely more concert than funeral, right? And it was meant to be a memorial. I get all of that. But why do y'all need dressing rooms in the back? Nas may have gotten up, and I love me some Nas. Don't get me wrong. But Nas got up there and may have talked for a minute. What did you need a dressing room for? What were your dressing rooms for? Right? That was just odd. That was just odd to me. Did the family have dressing rooms? I just didn't understand them. You see the red hue on this. It was just eerie to me. I couldn't get with it. It just felt very, it wasn't somber. Somber's not the word. It was just very eerie, scary. And like I said, if I was a small child in the audience, I would have been creeped out by it. And I probably would be dreaming, having nightmares about this shit. It was just kind of weird to me. It was just weird. And so, as you know, so the children got on stage. That was probably for me, the highlight is to see the kids, all the kids. And I don't know about you. I ain't gonna sit here and lie. Cause they kept me reports he got 15 kids. He got 17 kids. I was counting. I was like 1, 2, 3, 4. When they was kind of lined up, I was trying to count. And then I saw okay, it's a couple of little babies. So I'm assuming that, some of his kids are old enough to have their own kids as well. So, I was trying to count though. And that was, for me, that was kind of like the highlight of it. You had, the Rough Riders, you had, get on stage and everything and say what they needed to say. It was good to see a lot of them back together. I saw Dragon. Listen, I had the biggest crush on Dragon in 1998. Down Bottom. I still play Down Bottom. If you know Rough Riders Volume 1, you know exactly what song I am talking about when I say Down Bottom. Okay. So I follow Dragon, and I followed him for a while. And so just watching him break, like he couldn't contain his emotions. And I remember watching a video around the time that they had reported that X had passed. He couldn't contain himself. He was trying to stop himself from crying, but he was really broken up, and he was very, very emotional. So seeing all the Rough Riders on stage, seeing Eve and everything like that, the only thing that was a turnoff to me, and I'm going to talk about Swiss in a minute. Now, you know, the Deans, they're all family, right? They're all family, right? I didn't necessarily rock with, in that moment, it being announced that there was an album coming. It's just something about that to me, because if that announcement, right, isn't followed up by, and everything is going to go to the kids, then there's nothing else, in my opinion, to say. And that was my only criticism of that whole thing. There's a lot of aggrandizement. There's a lot of like me when it comes, when folks pass away. It's like what they meant to me. We get that. And we know that happens, right? We know that is something that happens. But I don't know. I was just kind of turned off by this announcement that, oh, there's an album coming. Like I said, if it ain't followed up by what is made off of that album will go to his kids, then there's nothing to say. Then you had Swiss get on stage, and a lot of people was wondering who he was talking about when he was like, there's a whole lot of vultures out there. There's a whole lot of folks out there that, I'm finally seeing how people are and how they want to, they leeches, they want to latch on. And everybody's sitting there looking around like, who is he talking about? Who is he talking about? Who knows? One of the things that I did get out of what he said, which I think was certainly important, is he said that people need to get a will, and he ain't lying. And I hate to be one of them. But one of the things that we have to do as responsible adults is to make sure our kids are if whatever you're leaving, you're taken care of. And if that's not a will, just have some life insurance, right? You can't depend on folks to bury you. You can't, put your people in a position to have to go get a GoFundMe. Go get yourself some life insurance. Just, that's just something I had to put out there because I think it's important. So, as far as this service is concerned, like I said, the only highlight for me, I did enjoy seeing the Rough Riders, but more importantly, his kids, seeing all those babies up there, his little daughter, who it's just so, just to see his kids up there, to see what he created up there on stage together, and to see that little girl just rapping. I'm like, shit, she sound better than some of these females out there right now. She sound better than them, right? But also, I have to note, and it was kind of put out there that many of those kids hadn't even met each other until the time of their father's death. I mean, 15 kids. I'm sure that's kind of hard to juggle, that everybody get together. But I'm glad that I hate that it's in this way, but I am glad that they got together. So now let's move on to the Sunday church service, which was more my speed. Okay, this was a funeral. It was a black funeral nonetheless, because, we're going to get into why I said it's black. It's a typical black funeral. A funeral ain't a funeral unless somebody cutting up, unless it's going on too long, right? Unless folks ain't keeping their remarks to 2 minutes or less. You know how that shit go, okay? And like always, there's a whole lot of shit to talk about at the repast, right? And I'm sure there was a whole lot of shit to talk about at the repast. So this was Pastor Bernard. And, it was, like I said, a typical funeral. You had the singing. You had folks get up there with the remarks. You had Tashira, who she touched my soul. She touched me. And I followed Tashira for a really long time. I have watched Tashira for a really, really long time. And, I'm not one of those people that believe that Black women should suffer just to prove their loyalty to a man. I am not one of those people. But when I tell you that woman loved that man and suffered in a marriage with DMX, And still, despite it all, still loved, again, as she said, his soul. That was Tashira. This is one hell of a woman, and I will give her props for that. I will give her props for her strength. Like I said, I'm not one of those people that think that anybody should suffer. And at some point, I think Tashira realized she couldn't do it anymore. Now, you have to remember something. Tashira had married X, was they married like in the late 90s or something like that? And they didn't technically get divorced till like 2012, 13, 14, somewhere in there. They had 4 children together. X has 15 kids total. So you do the math. Some of those kids was born during that marriage. Now, regardless of whether or not, I mean, they were over, right? Long before they technically got divorced. They were over. But nonetheless, he was still having kids. Kid. Because I was just looking at some of like the births. I'm like, well, they last child, I believe, was born in 2005. I think he had a child from somebody else before that child was born. So and if you, like I said, you add them up, 15 kids, there was clearly some overlap up in there, right? And I'm still kind of confused about his last fiance, Desiree, their child, Exodus. There was kids before that. And if Desiree said, I've been with this man for this many years, some of those kids on that stage looked like they was like roughly around like 9, 10. The little girl looked like she couldn't be no more about 7, 8, 9 at the most. So DMX was a busy dude. He was out there laying his seed. He was definitely doing that. Okay. But nonetheless, I think that this service was more my speed. She said some really beautiful words. They have known each other pretty much longer than they had been, like she was 11 years old when she met DMX and everything like that. So like I said, it was just a beautiful tribute to him. That was grown woman shit that she did with Desiree. I love that they were able to come together in that way. I'm sure it is not easy. Sometimes when you are juggling, and from my understanding, there are 9 different baby mamas. Well, I wouldn't even call Tashira baby mama because that was his wife. But there are 9 different women and 15 kids. And I'm sure all those 9 women were not there at that service. I counted 3 of them. There was another woman in the audience. I can't think of her name right off the bat, but she was there too. So I saw 3. I saw Tashira, Desiree, and then there was another one. There could have been others, but I did count 3 of the mothers of his 15, right? Nonetheless, there was a lot of singing. I love Leandria. I think Leandria sounded really, really good. I think she did. I think she sounded great. We had not a pastor, not Pastor Bernard. It was the other pastor, the one that was killing off everybody. He couldn't say the names right. Pastor shouldn't have to be able to get up there and say no rapper name. He shouldn't have to have did that, y'all. He was like Nipsey Russell. He said Tupac, Eazy-E, Lil' Kim, and I'm just like, wait, Lil' Kim ain't dead. Get this man, sit down, go sit down, but it was just kind of funny to me to hear that. And then you had, Faith Evans who sang, I'm going to get into that in a minute. What else? Paige Hurd, that was his goddaughter. You remember they did a movie together. So she got up there. So to see the kids get up there and speak on their father was a beautiful thing. Like I said, it was more of a funeral to me. Now, one of the things that did stick out to me was the obituary. There was a lot of revisionist history going on in that obituary. Now, I'm just going to say it. When they were reading the obituary, I was just looking around like, who wrote this? Did his mother write this? Because it made his mother sound like a Mother Teresa. And if you know anything about DMX, and if you have even heard him talk about his mother, if you read his autobiography, you would know that was some bullshit in that obituary. And I hate that when something like this happened, now we got to all of a sudden we got to revise history and pretend like it never happened. And I'm listening to them talk about his mother, and I'm like, again, I was like, did his mother write this? Because it made his mother sound like such an angel. And even his father, his father was sitting there, and I'm just like, wait a minute, because according to DMX, he suffered abused by his mama. His mama knocked his 2 front teeth out when he was 6 years old with a broom. And he went on to forgive his mother. Yes, he went on to forgive his mother later in life, but we're not going to sit here and pretend like none of that happened. And then his father even had a rousing, like, I'm just like, listen, y'all don't start. Black folks, we got to normalize telling the truth. And sometimes maybe the timing ain't right, but it's okay not to say nothing. Right. So ain't nobody got to write in there that his mama abused him and his daddy left him and his daddy never showed up to, called him for his birthday and his daddy only came around to sell paintings. They ain't got to say none of that in the obituary. But you know what they could have said? He was born to Arnett Simmons and Joe Barker. And, on 19, that's all this other stuff to me was too much because it was a lie. It was a lie. He has extensively talked about the abuse suffered by the hands of his mother and her boyfriends. And again, he forgave his mother later in life, but we ain't got to sit here now sugarcoat it and pretend. And folks do that too much to me, in my opinion. Now, let me get on Faith. A lot of people felt like Faith's performance wasn't that bad. Faith, in my opinion, she did not sound good. I'm sorry, but Faith did not sound good at all. It sounded like one of those just kind of jam sessions at her house. She had her white socks. I mean, it was just a mess. The dude in the back was like, what's the words? The woman that she handed the microphone to, she was nasally. She was singing out her nose. It was just a mess to me. It was a mess. And I had a good old kiki. Folks was clowning her on Twitter. But then I thought to myself, listen, Faith has suffered from addiction issues as well. She suffered from substance abuse problems as well. So instead of sitting here laughing and giggling about it, I just wish her well and hope that she's okay. Everybody entitled to a bad moment. And in my opinion, this was just not good. It wasn't. I hope she all right because I was a little worried. I was a little concerned. Faith did not sound good to me. She didn't. She absolutely did not. All right. Now Jungle. Now, like I said, when it come to a black funeral, somebody gonna cut up. Somebody gonna cut up. Jungle got his butt up there. I don't even know who Jungle is. Jungle is supposedly his best friend. And a lot of people was like, sometimes they felt like Jungle was making it about himself. He was talking too much. He was like, me, 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 me. And maybe that is true. Maybe that's true. I felt like the Rough Riders got up there and did the same thing. They gave them kids vests. Again, it's 15 kids. If y'all gonna stand on y'all word, how are y'all going to help this man who made millions on top of millions of dollars? Def Jam, all of them. So when Russell Simmons got up there and Leah Cohen got up there, I was like, all of this is bullshit if y'all ain't gonna make sure that his kids can eat off of what their father contributed to hip hop. Everything else is bullshit. But yeah, he got up there. He was like, I wanted to kind of hear the story because I was like, what he about to say? I wanted to kind of hear what he was going to say. But then, Pastor Bernard got up there like, okay, brother, all right now, don't disrespect my house. And a lot of people was kind of like feeling some type of way because Pastor Bernard said my house. I don't know. But I think that, listen, you do feel type of way when you don't get to get up there and speak on your people. But sometimes you just got to hold your peace and you got to understand that, it's a time and place. He felt like this was the place. He was not on the program or he got cut off the program. Sometimes you just got to let it be. And that's how funerals are. Sometimes you just got to let it be what it's going to be when it comes to funerals, right? Who knows what he was going to say, but it did kind of seem like he was talking about himself and he was promoting himself. And that just ain't the time or the place. Right. That ain't it. But overall, like I said, I liked the second service. I felt like it was more, in my opinion, maybe what DMX, his speed. I can't speak for DMX, but I just felt like because he was such a spiritually grounded man, I think he would have enjoyed the second service. But again, who am I to know? Who am I? Right. But like I said, it was a typical black funeral. It was long. It wasn't as long as Aretha's. Because hell, let me tell you about Aretha Franklin funeral. I got up and went to work that morning. And when I came back home, it was still on. So it was long. DMX's funeral was long. And I'm glad that, the benediction came. The benediction came quick as hell after Jungle got up there. He wanted to go ahead and get that over with. But nonetheless, I'm glad that they were able to celebrate the life of this man. Yes, he had his flaws. He had, but I felt like he was spiritually grounded nonetheless. Nonetheless, he was spiritually grounded. And like I said, I do feel like DMX got his flowers when he was here. That's my opinion on that, right? If people had just like didn't F with him, I would be like, yeah, now y'all want to come up here and say y'all love him. But I just felt like that wasn't necessarily true in the case of DMX. I felt like even on Drink Champs, if you just listen to DMX for 5 minutes, you would know where he was, right? And it's unfortunate that he struggled. That's why I didn't like the whole idea of his mother getting up there now changing. I mean, not his mother didn't get up there, but now all of a sudden it's different, right? When his mother, if you think about it, it's like the chicken or the egg. His mother and how he was raised is a lot of the reason why he had some of the issues, right? And like I said, I'm glad that he forgave his mother, and I'm glad that was settled later on in his life. But yeah, I just don't. Black folks, we got to normalize just being okay with things being, and not changing up the narrative, right? When something happened, it's, this shit happened, right? We acknowledge it, we move on, but you ain't got to change up the narrative and shit like that. But nonetheless, I just want to come to you guys and just give you my thoughts on the whole situation with DMX. Rest in peace to DMX, Black Rob, and Shock G. Those is, child, they come in threes. They come in threes, y'all. I hope we don't have to hear about nothing else, though. I hope not. But nonetheless, I just want to come to you guys and tell you that. Let me know what you guys think about this whole thing. All right. And we'll talk again. We'll talk again when, like I said, it's a little long. I hope you guys can sit through it, and like, comment, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys on the next video. Take care, y'all. Love y'all.